Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Rockman and Fort, also known as Mega Man and Bass for the Super Nintendo, brought to us by Capcom. Rockman and Fort was actually released for the Super Nintendo after Mega Man 8 had already been released on the PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn. This game ended up featuring many of the same graphics and enemies that you would see in that game, including two of the same robot masters to fight. While Rockman and Fort was only released in Japan for the Super Nintendo, it was later ported over to the Game Boy Advance and finally translated and brought over to North America and Europe. In the game, you can play as either Mega Man or as Bass for the first time. Both characters control very differently from one another and even have different arm cannons. For example, Mega Man can use a charged-up blast and do a sliding ability, while Bass has a streaming cannon shot, as well as he can do a charge forward and a double jump. In this run of the game, I'll be playing as Bass. One of the other big drawing factors of the game is the database CDs that you can collect. They're all scattered throughout all the different levels of the game and can be rather tricky at times in order to collect. They do not change the ending though, so I won't be collecting all the data CDs during this run of the game. However, if you would like to see them, they have a full translated version of all the data CDs available online. As we play though, I will grab a few of the data CDs here and there. You can immediately tell that Bass controls a lot faster than normal regular Mega Man because of the charging ability. While Mega Man would get this ability in the Mega Man X series, he never got it in the original Mega Man series. With Bass's rapid-fire shots, it's a lot weaker than just a normal shot from Mega Man. However, since it's constant, it can do a lot of damage to enemies quickly. Unfortunately though, on boss enemies where they have a few seconds of invulnerability, you can't keep hitting them over and over again until their invulnerability wears out. During this segment of the first level, be very careful of course to not get up too high on the platforms as the ship goes up and down the water. Of course, if you end up hitting the spikes on the top, you will instantly be killed. With Bass's charge, as well as his double jump, you can really bypass a lot of different areas of the stages, and it's really a whole different type of gameplay than you would get with normal Mega Man. Instead of having to wait for certain platforms to rise, you'll be able to just run past the area and do a quick charge and jump, and be able to get past the area without having to wait for those platforms to appear. As we enter the boss chamber, we have a short cutscene before we battle the first boss of the game. This giant green blob was one of the final bosses in Mega Man 8. Thankfully though, when we battle him here, he's a heck of a lot easier to deal with. With Bass, you can actually just stand on the ground and keep doing your rapid fire, and be able to hit the eye in the middle. As you can see, you have to hit the blob multiple times for it to open up wide enough so you can hit the eyeball inside. It won't take too long, and he only has a few of the little slimes that'll throw at you, as well as it'll crawl across the ground. As long as you have a little bit of health left, about half, you should have no problem getting past this boss. Once he's defeated though, you're presented with the stage select screen. There's only 3 robot masters we can choose at first, either Cold Man, Astroman, or Groundman, and we're going to start at the top here and battle Cold Man first. Like my Mega Man runs, I'll be just using the Mega Buster, or the Bass Buster in this case, in order to fight the robot masters the first time through. When we rematch with them later on in the later levels, I will use their weaknesses against them. Being only able to select a few levels at the beginning actually stops us from being able to use certain weaknesses against the bosses anyway. For example, we wouldn't even be able to have the weakness for Astroman until we beat Magic Man later on. Be careful along these platforms or run into one of the enemies so that you can then easily get across the spikes. As you can see, I was able to grab one of the discs up in the upper right corner. You'll see that Bass has a lot easier opportunities in order to grab most of the CDs throughout the game. This is the first mini-boss that we're going to be dealing with. This giant snowman enemy tries to suck you in towards him, and then spits out these little snowmen that come parachuting down. For the most part, the best way to deal with him is just jumping up and keep doing repetitive shots over and over again at the top of his head, and then deal with a couple of the little snowmen that fall down. He will destroy a few of them when he jumps up in the air, and the ones that end up landing on the ground, they end up being destroyed after only a few seconds on the ground, so you don't have to worry about them as well. It does take a lot of shots to finally kill this guy with just normal Bass's fire, but he thankfully isn't too difficult. You can see with Bass, we're able to bypass a lot of the cannons along this area by doing some charged up running and double jumps. When we get up here, the area opens up and you have this machine that shoots out giant ice blocks. As Mega Man, you would actually have to ride these ice blocks in order to get over a couple of the gaps, but you technically really don't even have to deal with them when using Bass. You can just do the running jump over them. When you reach the end of the room, though, it's time for the first robot master of the game, Coldman. Coldman isn't too difficult to deal with, however, it's going to take a lot of fire in order to take him down. You can see that Bass's normal attack brings his health down rather slowly. Coldman charges up these big ice blocks and then sends them towards you and bounces off the far wall and then comes back towards him. You actually can't destroy these easily, so you'll have to jump over them and try to fire in a couple of shots when you have the opportunity. When he starts charging up the ground below you, keep doing some jumps in the air so you can avoid getting accidentally caught in one of those circles on the ground, or else you'll be frozen, giving Coldman a great opportunity to do a lot of damage to you. As the battle progresses, he'll also start throwing out these little cloud robots that will end up preventing you from being able to jump a lot if they end up running into you. But thankfully, with Bass's ability to shoot all directions, you'll be able to take them out way before they even get close to the ground. While it does require a little bit of patience to slowly drain the boss's health, thankfully though, he's not really too difficult and you should be able to avoid most of his attacks. Once he's taken care of, Bass gets his first ability. You can see that Bass gets some pretty cool animation when he gets a new ability, and then we go back to the stage selection screen. The next battle we're going to deal with is Astroman, who in my opinion ends up probably being the hardest robot master to deal with as Bass. At the beginning of the level, you'll have a few of the frog robots to deal with. You actually have to destroy the bottom one in order to fully get rid of it. Destroying the top one still causes the bottom one to continue hopping towards you. Watch out for these enemies throughout the whole game. If you walk over top of them, they end up trying to grab you with a gator-like mouth. With any of the Sniper Joe enemies with base, you can actually get right next to him, be able to have your cannon just past his shield, and keep launching in shots at him without him actually being able to fire at you, and even though he's blocking, your hits still end up hitting him. When we enter this room, be very careful. You have to end up jumping on the right pattern that it ends up showing you, just like a game of Simon. Thankfully it's only 3 at first, but another room later will have 5 that you have to memorize in a row. Nothing too difficult, but if you end up pressing the wrong one, the cannon ends up firing at you. Be careful during these types of floors in the game as they quickly rise up, usually towards spikes located on the ceiling. Thankfully, with just a quick dash or jumping off of them, you should be able to get off of them way before they end up running into the spikes. Instead of dealing with the disappearing, reappearing blocks, you can just do a big running jump over there and get to the ladder in the upper right corner. This room, however, you will have to deal with the blocks a little bit as we work base up into the upper right. As we enter this room, it's time for another one of those games of Simon. This time we have to do a 5-button sequence, and thankfully once again it's not like it's very difficult to get through. Here we have to make sure that we don't step on the first one too long, but we do need to ride the second one up towards the next platform. You have to be quick on it though, so you get off of it in time before it too will also rise into a spike pile at the top. Once you get past those though, it's time for a battle with Astroman. In my opinion, this is going to be the hardest Robot Master fight in the whole game. Astroman has a few different moves to deal with. The first move he's doing is he's summing up these little holes in the ground where these enemies will keep popping up over and over again until you take care of them. However, the worst thing about him is this move right here, where he keeps going back and forth between the left and right sides of the room, causing a clone of himself to appear and then launch a powerball at you. The thing is, as Mega Man, you would be able to slide underneath of him as he's moving back and forth while he swoops down. However, as base, since you can't slide, you're going to have to do a lot of quick dodging, and it can be really tricky, and I end up taking a lot of damage during that stage of the fight. One of the other real annoying things about Astroman is a lot of your shots end up getting deflected by the 2 orbs that orbit around him. Try to do your best to end up causing the shots to get a little bit manipulated in the directions you want them to so you can actually dodge them. But for the most part, it's really hard to do that, and you're probably going to take a lot of hits during his segment when he's doing this. Once we're finally able to drain his health just barely, we end up getting his ability and we move on to the next stage. With the hardest Robot Master for base to take care of done, we end up moving on to one of the easiest Robot Masters for base to take on. Your jumps can get hindered by a few of the sand piles that are coming down. If you can see the sand in the background, not the foreground, that's the sand can actually hinder you when you're trying to do a jump. As you can see right there, it stopped me from being able to do a high double jump, but I was still able to jump up high enough in order to grab that CD. Here we have some quicksand, so you can easily speed through that. Be sure, of course, not to stay in it too long so you end up falling down. In the next room, you end up having this large robot that tries to come out and eat you. The thing about it is, you can actually hang on to the ladder in the center of the room, so you can actually wait for him to go past and then drop down. Here, we stand on the top platform, wait for him to go past the ladder, and then go down it. We do the same here, but you can actually drop off the ladder and do a double jump to get a CD in the right corner. You also have to be quick enough though during these areas that once he passes by, you're also fast enough to get past the hole where he spawns because another one will come out a few seconds later. After one more of those robots, we now have a giant one to face for the mini-boss of the stage. This guy can be a little bit of a pain because of how big he is. You're also in a confined small area, so the best way to deal with him is just trying to learn his pattern as he works his way through the walls and comes back out towards you. Thankfully though, Bass can pretty much hit him from any spot in the room with his multiple direction shooting, so just try to jump over him and stay out of his way as best as possible and keep firing at him. One of the best areas is when he's doing this, going up and down from one side of the room to the other. You have a good opportunity to hit him with a lot of quick shots fast to the face. Watch out here when the bottom of him comes out of the bottom, as he ends up causing two little eggs to spawn with little worms inside of them. Either destroy the egg while it's in mid-air, or just blast the worm while it's crawling across the ground. It may take a time or two through his rotation of moves, but eventually you should be able to destroy him and continue on in the level. When you get up to these platforms, the ground below will break apart when you stand on one of the spots for too long, so quickly move your way over, even if that means running into one of the enemies to get by faster. In the next room, you have these totems. Every white totem that you destroy causes a giant amount of spikes to come closer towards you. What you need to do is destroy the least amount of totems possible, and then destroy the red one so that it ends up opening the door. As you can see, this is probably the best way to get by with Bass. However, I'm sure there is a couple of other strategies to get by these rooms. In this room, you have the ground get broken apart by a bunch of these little jumping robots. Try to quickly move across, but thankfully Bass can get over him rather easily with his speed and his double jump. After jumping over a Sniper Joe, it's time for the boss battle against Groundman. Groundman has a few main attacks. His big one is he jumps up into the ceiling and causes this giant drill to come down wherever you're currently standing. He'll do this 3 times in a row, and using Bass's quick dash ability, you'll be able to cause him to do it over and over again, sometimes at the same exact spot. His other big move is he turns into this little tank and starts moving across the ground. He'll go back and forth 3 times before coming back into his normal form. You can't hurt him in this form, so just jump over him and prepare for the best opportunity to get a couple of shots in. When he's underground, just be sure to get away from him when he's about to come back up, as you'll clearly see in the ground itself when he's about to re-emerge. While of course the battle will take a little bit for Bass to slowly drain the guy's health, as you can see it's pretty easy to dodge all of his attacks. As the battle continues, he will start using one of his other major moves, which is his giant drill attack, which will slowly break apart as he gets closer and closer to the next wall. The thing about it is, he likes to do this by jumping up in the air and firing the drill, in which case it'll just go over your head even as it breaks apart. Once you deliver the final hit to Groundman, we have his ability and we can move on to the second set of Robot Masters. After completing the first 3 Robot Masters, we now have all the connected paths and we can take on the second set of Robot Masters. We're going to start off at the top and work our way down, so we're starting off with Burnerman. In the first area, watch out for a few of those classic Mega Man bats who are going to try to get in your way. Then work your way up here and take out the Sniper Joe. During this segment, we see this giant robot for the first time. We're going to be seeing him quite a lot throughout the game, and with Base, you can actually set up in certain areas to take him out, but actually without having to get in his way. You'll have to wait a few seconds for Base to finally be able to take him out, but once he's done, you can just easily move past without having to worry about him. Here, instead of dealing with him, we're able just to make a quick jump overhead and get to the other side of the room. In this area, you can see the floor is covered up by a panel. Some of these areas contain holes in the floor, so you have to be careful where you step. Usually it's best just to do a running jump over the whole area so you don't have to worry about it. For example, right here, we can do a double jump from the platform below that goes through the hole in order to grab a CD. Be careful here that you don't accidentally fall down the hole when you get past the enemy right there, and then continue on in the stage for another one of the giant robots. For this one, if we get on top and start firing at him, just drop down on the ladder a few seconds after the ball gets released, and you should be able to avoid getting hit by it. This one's the hardest one we've dealt with so far. He shoots out a ball that breaks apart into spikes in a spread shot, but standing down on the bottom platform here, we're able to do a quick little jump up, and be able to clip him with a couple of shots each time. It takes a while since it takes so many shots of Base to take him out, but at least you're safe from damage. The next room is a huge pain as you have spears coming out of the walls. They keep coming out of the same spots each time, but it can really be tricky to try to get past them since some of them move so quickly, so just take the damage if you need to and just try to rush your way through. When you drop down here, do a double jump over on the right side and you may be able to just sneak up high enough in order to grab yourself another one of the CDs. This segment can be a real pain. You have to be very careful of the giant floating robot. It drops down a bomb that causes fire to come out from the bottom of the screen, and if you touch that fire, it's an instant kill. So you have to make sure that you're on the upper part of the screen when it's dropping those bombs. When you get up the ladder, just unleash a steady stream of shots at this dragon robot to destroy him, and then you can enter the boss chamber to fight Burnerman. Burnerman can be a real tough challenge with Base. He does a lot of running dashes that you can jump over, but he has a relatively small platform and takes up a decent amount of space, so sometimes it can be hard to avoid him. His main attack is he likes to use his flame out, like a flamethrower, and keep jumping slightly each and every time, getting closer and closer to you, either causing you to get hit by it eventually, or possibly going too far back to get knocked in the spikes. One of the best strategies I found with Base is to hit him from behind when he's doing the flamethrower move, then jump over him a second or so before he ends up changing directions. This will give you an opportunity to keep unleashing hits on him easily without having to deal with the flamethrower itself. The timing can be a little bit tricky, but it's probably the best way to get past this battle without using his weakness. Also, just be very mindful of the little robots he throws at the ground randomly, because these will stop you and electrify you for a few seconds, giving him a great opportunity to hit you with some of his moves. Once you're able to drain his health down low enough, we get the Wave Burner ability and we move on to the next level. The next robot master we're going to tangle with is Pirate Man. Now, since he is the water-themed robot for this game, you can expect his whole level to be filled with water traps. Be very careful on the first few platforms that you don't end up running into the little spike dials that are rotating back and forth along each platform. During this segment, we see the giant spiked landmines that are underwater, and these can be a real threat to us, and they're really hard to move unless you have the Wave Burner ability. Here, jump up here in order to get a CD, and then come down here. In order to avoid running into the spike, use Wave Burner, and then just slowly step your way over in order to eventually fall off the platform without running into the spike ball. When we get over here, blast the whale ship a little bit, and then back up after it gets close to you so you can continue firing at it to fully destroy it. In the next area, we have a lot of the mines set up along the top, so take the bottom path. Be careful though, because there is spikes lining the bottom, so you'll have to jump on the platforms. But be careful, don't stand directly in the middle of those blue platforms, because it ends up causing you to be trapped inside of a bubble. Once we're past that area though, we're already at the boss chamber, and it's time to battle Pirate Man. Pirate Man, thankfully, is a pretty easy battle to deal with base. His main attack is the mines that he shoots out. He usually shoots them out in pairs of 3, so you have one that comes directly towards you, do a little jump in the air that causes the next one to go above you, and then try to get the third one to stop before you end up hitting the wall in the back. You can also do a quick double jump in the air sometimes in order to avoid certain mines. Pirate Man's other big attack is he likes to get inside of his bubble and bounce around the room. However, with base and his constant fire, you can just pop the bubble each and every time he tries to get inside of it. This prevents him from really being able to do anything but the mine moves to you, so just keep launching fire and he'll go down quickly. Our next robot master to deal with is Dynamo Man, the electric-based robot master for the game. Throughout this level, you have these large platforms that are set up with multiple exploding boxes. Destroying the blue ones also destroys all the other same colored blue ones stacked amongst one another, so you want to destroy those and not the red ones, so you end up landing on spikes most of the time. Most of this area on the giant conveyor belt can be bypassed by just jumping on the red platforms as long as you don't destroy them, and keep doing running double jumps with base. If you want to get yourself another CD, you can jump up here, battle your way through a couple of the electric robots, and then use your wave burner at the end in order to blow up the wall and grab yourself a CD. Once you have the CD, head back down to the conveyor belt and head right. You then have a large gap that you can easily jump over by jumping into one of the enemies, and then just do another quick dashing double jump when you land on the spikes fast enough so that your invulnerability doesn't run out and you're able to bypass some of the level there. Once we get up here, it's time for the mini-boss of this level. It has these two robots on the side that will fire out different types of projectiles at you, one throwing slime and one throwing these blue shots that arc around. It takes a few shots directly at the blue jewel in front of them in order to actually destroy each one, but they will keep spawning over and over again. After some time, the two jewels will end up meeting one another across the room, and they cause a laser that go up and down in the room, so you have to be very careful and try to do some double jumps in order to avoid getting hit by it. For the most part, just stay on the middle platform and take out the two side robots when they become a nuisance, but really just focus on the things that launch them at the top right and left corners. Once you destroy one, though, it gets a heck of a lot easier because they can no longer do the giant laser move. It takes a lot of fire, but thankfully eventually it'll go down and we can move to the next part. In the next area, you have a spotlight that moves along a completely dark room. You have to be very careful that you don't accidentally take the wrong path here, and if you jump down too early, you may end up landing in some spikes if you don't know exactly where to go. Once that's over with, we grab ourselves another one of those CDs before a little bit more conveyor belts before the boss door. Dynamo Man can be a little bit tricky to deal with. He likes to jump all the way across the screen, which a good dash will be able to dodge that, but he also dashes across the bottom of the screen. Doing a double jump should hopefully avoid getting ran into. When he sends up 3 electrical charges up into the air, he's going to do a series of 3 different lightning bolts. These can be tricky to dodge, and they're usually going to instantly come down where you're standing. So a second or so before it comes down, if you move just slightly over to the left or right, you should be able to avoid at least 1 or 2 of the lightning bolts. He also likes to send out 6 of these electrical charges in your direction. Thankfully, they always come in the same pattern each and every time. 2 of them are on the ground level, so you can destroy them with your cannon. You'll have to jump over the 3rd one, as that one's in the middle, but thankfully 2 of them are also too high and they just go right over your head. The worst part about the battle with Dynamo Man is when he gets low on health, he jumps up into the top of the screen and starts recharging his health. Thankfully with base though, you can easily attack the 2 stations on the left and right side of him as he charges, getting him to stop charging and get back to the fight. Also late in the fight, he'll start throwing this rainbow of electrical charges at you. Each of them will come at you one at a time, so it's really easy to dodge them, so focus on dodging them and then take the rest of his health away. Next up is the second of the rematches for Mega Man 8 as we do battle with Tengu Man. Tengu Man's level is actually a pretty interesting starting level, as it actually is a scrolling level. Thankfully, with Base's running dash moves, you should be able to avoid jumping on most of the balloons, but if you do have to land on them, just remember that they will pop after about 2 seconds of you standing on them. The cloud enemies that we dealt with during the Cold Man level is back again, so just destroy them easily with a couple of shots of your Base Buster. When you come to this room, you have to destroy both robots in order for the door to open up. Stand on the far left side to take out the bottom one, and then you can jump up to the platform to deal with the other one. Here there is a couple of paths for you to choose. Choosing the middle one will grant you a CD, and then you can take either the top or bottom one to get to the next screen. You'll have to do another similar choice on the next screen. They all lead to an open area, but it's your choice what type of enemy do you want to deal with. Here we have another one of those 2 robot rooms. Destroying both of them while they're on the machines will grant you access to the door on the right side. Here, take out the cloud robot as well as the cannon on the left side, and then you can grab yourself the CD before climbing up the ladder if you want. When you reach the top though, it's time to battle Tengu Man. While Tengu Man may not be the easiest of the robot masters, learning his pattern can actually grant you a pretty flawless battle against him. He hovers back and forth at the top of the screen, sometimes coming all the way down in order to do a charge forward. Just be prepared to do a double jump if you see him coming towards you at any point. He also likes to stand still and throw a little tornado out. You can actually just stand directly underneath of him when he does this and keep blasting him from behind. Anytime he comes all the way down to the bottom of the screen, he's going to do the charge forward, so you always know to get ready with that double jump. Later on, he may start charging and dashing across the screen head first. Just keep firing, and as soon as you see him come on screen, immediately do a double jump over him. With just a little bit of practice, you should have no trouble taking down Tengu Man, and you may even be able to beat him without taking any damage. Just be sure that you don't accidentally fall off the left or right side, as even when he's defeated, you can still lose a life that way. The final robot master we're going to deal with is Magic Man, who happens to be my favorite of the game. His level is very reminiscent and has most of the enemies taken directly out of Clown Man's stage from Mega Man 8, including even this train segment. Instead of waiting for the train though, as Base we can just do some running double jumps and be able to bypass any of that train and not even have to wait for it. In this area, fall down and wait for the creature to show up. He bounces around, but he also breaks the floor. You can destroy him if you want, but another one will just spawn, as you actually have to get to the door on the right side by him breaking down the blocks enough so that you can actually access it. Here you can do a double jump by standing on the right platform and double jumping underneath this skull platform in order to grab the CD hidden within that corner. Ride the platforms upward, taking out a few enemies on your way, and go up the ladder at the top. These little robots can definitely be a pain because they can grab onto you, causing you to be stopped. On the next screen, you have a couple more of the trains running back and forth. Just work your way down to the bottom. In the next room, you see these robots in the background ringing bells. Every time they ring the bell, it causes the spike blocks to rotate, so you have to jump on them when there's actually a non-spike at the top of it. Thankfully, with double jumps, you don't have to jump on every single one of the blocks, but you still have to take your time to make sure that you'll be able to accomplish the jumps that you want to without landing on spikes. Once you reach the top, though, you have just one more room to deal with, and then it's time to battle Magic Man. Magic Man starts off in the middle of the screen, which is a little bit unusual for a lot of the robot masters. A lot of his attacks are going to be based on when you attack him. Usually when he's dashing back and forth at the bottom of the screen and you hit him with an attack, he'll then send out one of his own attacks. These usually consist of one of two moves. He either sends out this ball towards you that can hurt you pretty good, but every time you fire and directly hit the ball that he throws out, it ends up causing the little soldiers to get dropped, in which case they can end up grabbing you, allowing him to just dash right into you. He also throws out his playing cards. Now, if the playing cards hit you, they end up taking a chunk of your health and give it back to him. His other big moves is he'll jump up into the air, throwing an egg at you. Thankfully, with the ability to shoot in a diagonal direction, you should be able to destroy the egg most of the time before it lands on you. However, if it lands and crashes open, it ends up causing these little bird robots to start flying around. Just keep your rapid fire up, even if it causes the little soldiers to drop down, and usually you can just do a dashing jump over them to avoid running into them so they don't grab you, and eventually you'll be able to drain his health down low enough to beat him. Once he's done, we've now defeated all the robot masters of the game, and now we go to a weird level that actually is kind of a little extra level before we go to the actual final fortress levels of the game. This level is kind of like a treasury. There's lots of the giant sprues that you can grab in order to go buy items at the shop. In order to get these though, you actually have to break a cube in each room using one of the different abilities that we've earned throughout the game. The first room that we started off with, we had to use the blade that we got from Tengu Man. Next up, we used the card from Magic Man in order to break the green cubes and grab the giant sprue. In the next room, use Wave Burn to blow up the wall and then use Flame Burner in order to break the cube, then jump on top in order to grab the giant sprue. Across from that room, get out the drill we got from Groundman and use that by jumping up and breaking it apart in order to hit the red cube in the corner. In the next room, get out Cold Man's ability, create a wall of ice, and then push it forward onto the spike so it bounces around, grabbing the cube, and as well as giving you the sprue. Across from that, you have the hardest one to do, and this one you have to use the mines from Pirate Man. You have to jump up and shoot it, and then guide the mine through the little maze, and then activate it in order to get the cube in the corner. In this room, get out the clone ability and blast the cube in order to easily grab the sprue. There's only one room left, and that room we have to use the lightning bolt ability we got from Dynamo Man. Just use one lightning shot and you'll be able to destroy all the cubes and grab the last of the money screws. Once you've done that, you can leave the room by going in the same way we came. Before heading to King's Fortress, we're going to stop by the shop and buy a couple items. There's lots of different items here that you can buy and can equip to base, so you actually have some pretty cool abilities. We're going to buy ourselves the Treble Boost, which allows you to summon Treble and equip him like the Rush Jet. And the other two that we're going to buy is the S-Through, the Shot Through, which allows you to shoot through walls. But the main important one that I'm buying is the one that upgrades our shots, and that is the Super Shots ability. This allows us to have a much more powerful beam that we shoot out each and every time, and it still fires as quickly as our normal shot. Once we've done that, we're now heading into King's Fortress for the final levels of the game. In the first area, be sure to equip the Super Shot if you bought it. You can see that it equips in the lower left corner of that screen. Then do a running charge jump over the giant gap of spikes so that you can land and get on the ladder. You can see that the beam that we shoot out is now a lot larger and it destroys enemies rather quickly. In the next rooms we have to deal with the giant centipedes that we fought in Groundman's level. But thankfully, standing still on the platform and just firing directly at the face of it will destroy it in only a couple of seconds. With the giant robot that throws the bouncing ball, you can just stand still next to him and keep firing as you'll destroy the ball as soon as he throws it and you won't even have to dodge it. Here we can just hang on the ladder to easily destroy the spike ball throwing robot from the top. Here we can skip a little bit of a level by doing a nice little double jump to instantly get to the ladder on the right side. Quickly destroy these robots and work your way over to the next room, and then you have these giant junk piles. Be careful because the second set of them has spikes lining the bottom of it, so if you stay in the garbage too long, you're going to hit the spikes. In this room with a well-timed jump, you can easily bypass the robot and just get up into the upper right corner to go to the next room. In the next room, watch out for the giant rivers of green liquid that are coming down as it'll stop you the same way that the sand did in Groundman's stage. After destroying another one of those giant horned robots, you then drop down to this room where a monkey will show up and turn out the lights on you. Jump up and enter the room, and now it's time for the boss battle. This can be a rather tricky boss, as you actually have to jump on the platform on the left over and over again and bring it down far enough to cause the robot to show himself on the right side. You then can blast him in order to do damage. While I'm sure some of your sub-weapons may do well, if you have the Super Shot equipped, it does a lot of good damage and is easy at hitting. Just be careful that you don't stay on the platform too long and end up landing in the lava below. When the monkey appears on the top, watch out as he will try to throw some objects at you, as well as try to taunt you, but he really is no threat. Just focus on the robot on the right, and once he's beaten, you've completed the first of King's levels. King Stage number 2 is one of the longer levels as we have to deal with a couple of boss battles during this stage. Once we climb up the ladder, just be careful of a few of the slime-spewing robots as you work your way up, as well as a couple of those ball-throwing giant robots. After you have another one of those giant rhino-esque robots, you make it to a ladder, in which case you then just bypass one of those gator robots and a few of those grabby little robots before you get to the door for the first boss battle of the level. This boss is one of the trickier bosses to deal with in the game. It's this giant king tank. Start off the battle by going down the left ladder, then work your way over to the right side of the room. The giant tank will start to back up. If he fires his giant missiles up into the air, just be sure to look at the ground as you can see where they're gonna land and just avoid getting hit by them as the explosion can hit you even while you're below. Get the tank to come out a little bit and it'll open up the hatch on the back. You can only hurt the tank's hatch while it's opened up, as every other shot will just get deflected from it. Walk over back to the left and try to get him to open up that hatch, and then jump up and keep blasting it with your base buster. It'll take a couple of tries at this, but eventually you'll destroy the hatch on the back, and then we can focus on its other two main forms of attack. Once you've destroyed the hatch, equip the remote mines that we got from Pirate Man. Climb up either ladder that you like, whichever one you feel more safe doing at this point, and then fire one of the mines at the top of the robot. When it throws up its hatch in order to shoot the missiles, detonate the mine to do damage. You can also work on the front gun as well, as you have to destroy both of them. So throw mines at the gun as well, and anytime that opens up the fire at you, detonate the mine. It takes about 3 or 4 of the mines to fully destroy either the gun or the top missile launcher. Once you've destroyed one or the other, then just focus your rest of your attention on his final ability. Thankfully, with only that ability left, he really can't do anything but that, so you can really just focus and easily be able to destroy him. Once you completely destroy the tank, you get teleported out to the next part of the stage. At the beginning of this area, there's a few treasure chests set up, that if you need to replenish any of the items that you used in the previous battle, you can do so. Thankfully, they also give you a little bit of health, as we have another boss battle coming up very soon. With a nice quick time jump, you can actually bypass this giant robot by doing a jump overhead of it. Use the wave burner at the top so you can get access to the ladder on the left side. Here we have our next boss battle. All these platforms start rising up one after another, and you have to keep jumping from one to another, as a giant king flying ship will appear on the right side of the screen for you to battle with. This fight can be rather long, but using your super shot is probably the better way to do it. The worst thing you have to worry about during this fight is the front cannon that'll open up. Anytime you see the crystal on the front of the tank open up, focus your attention on it. After a while, it'll charge up and give a huge blast that you won't be able to dodge unless you destroy the crystal first. You can see it also does a pretty good amount of damage to you when it's opened up. However, with a few direct shots from the super shot, it will break. However, it can be really hard sometimes in order to get direct shots onto the cannon itself. Unfortunately, they don't give you a health bar during this battle, so you can never really tell how much more health this thing has. Also during the fight, it will start throwing out these little bubbles. Inside the bubbles can be health as well as item replenishment, but it's also sometimes these bombs. If you accidentally shoot one of the bomb bubbles, it blows up, causing the whole screen to become white for a second, and hindering your visibility. Thankfully though, if you have your timing pretty well done already, and you have a nice rhythm going, even with the whole screen being white, you should be able to find your next platform. These giant fists can be extremely annoying because they destroy platforms that you can jump to. Thankfully, with Base's abilities, we can bypass having to really worry about too many of the platforms getting broken, because you can jump a really long distance. However, if you were Mega Man during this part, you may have some trouble. Once you finally destroy the ship, just keep jumping to the platforms and eventually you'll reach the end, and can finally be on safe ground again. Once on safe ground, you get teleported to the next part of the level. Thankfully though, this is the final segment, and has the final boss for this stage. Ride the giant ice cube if you like over so that you can make it across the spike gap. Here, destroy the chest, and then get out your drill ability in order to break the rock on the right side so that you can get into the gap. Up here, replenish your items if you like, and then enter the boss chamber. Here we have our first showdown with King, who we've been chasing the whole game. The thing is, in the first fight against him, you can't hurt him whatsoever. So what you have to do is dodge his projectiles that he shoots out. He shoots out these giant X's at you. Thankfully, they always come in the same directions each and every time he does so. The first two will go down, the third goes up, the fourth down, and then finally the fifth one will go up. Doing some nice double jumping will allow you to jump over all these X's. You have to jump over 3 sets of them before this battle is over. With Burnerman currently unable to fight, you now must battle King one-on-one. Thankfully though, this fight is extremely easy to deal with. He jumps up into the air and then he tries to swing his axe at you. Every time he jumps, just do a quick dash underneath of him and you'll be able to get behind him and launch in some shots with the base buster. It'll take a little while, but you'll be able to drain his health and not take too much damage because we have another boss to deal with still. After King runs off after being revived by Dr. Wily, it's now time for the final battle against King. King jumps inside his giant tank, which is a combination of a tank we fought and the flying machine, and turns it into a giant mech. This battle can be rather tricky and you have no platforms to jump on, so you have to do some diagonal shooting in order to hit the chamber on top to do damage to him. Anytime he brings out the cannon on the top part of the ship, get out your remote mines and launch one on top of it and detonate it so you can end up exploding it before it does the giant charge beam. Dodge the missiles that he shoots out, as well as be ready to do a double jump against the left wall if he starts to charge forward. Even though his fist will technically run into you, it doesn't hurt you, and only the bottom part of the ship will hurt you if it runs into you. The good news is, if you're able to get some good diagonal shooting down, you'll be able to drain his health rather fast, as a good shot will take away a lot of health. With King taken care of, we teleport out, and it's time for the final level of the game. And what Mega Man game wouldn't be complete without a boss rush? You start off in a room able to replenish some of the items that we've been using in the last few levels. So get out your lowest items and get them back to full, because we will be using them against these bosses. We start off with a rematch against Man. Now, Man's weakness is the lightning bolt. It takes a lot every time you use it, so you won't be able to completely defeat him with this, but if you use it a lot at the beginning, you'll be able to take away over half of his health. Then, just switch back to your normal base buster and finish him off the way we did the first time around. In the next area, do a running double jump up to the ladder in the upper right, and then left corners. There are some disappearing reappearing blocks if you need them, but with base you can just bypass all that. In the next room, it's now time for our rematch against Astroman, and thankfully this time we do have his weakness, so this battle will go a lot better than the first. Equip Magic Man's magic card ability and start attacking him with it. Every time you hit Astroman, he does freeze every time you do this, allowing you to keep doing it over and over again. If you start summoning the creatures from the holes in the ground, just pull out your regular base buster in order to hit them, and then switch back to your cards. With Astroman taken care of, do a giant running jump over the spikes to the next platform. Be careful that you don't accidentally land on the spikes below there. Here, destroy the robots and then enter the room for a rematch against Dynamo Man. Dynamo Man's weakness is the copy ability, so get that out as soon as he spawns. While it may not seem at first that this is the best way, thankfully, if you set it up right, the copy ability can actually destroy the little projectiles that Dynamo Man shoots out. Plus, while he's charging back and forth, you'll be able to hit him several times with each spawn of the copy ability. The only time I would recommend switching out of this ability is when he jumps up into the air trying to recharge. Switch to your normal buster then and easily destroy it with only a couple of shots. Then switch back if you like, or just use your base buster to finish him off. Drop down here and you'll land inside the water. Take out a couple of these octopus enemies, and then a couple of squid robots before you enter the boss chamber against Pirate Man. Thankfully they give you a little bit of health as well as an item replenishment if you need it. Now, Pirate Man was already a pretty overall easy battle, but you can make it just as easy, if not easier, by switching to the Wave Burner. The Wave Burner does even more damage than just the Mega Buster, plus it can pop the bubbles just like your normal Buster can. try to do your best to avoid the mines, and anytime he tries to get inside that bubble, be sure to be next to him with a wave burner. In the next chamber, it fills up with water, so be careful while jumping through this that you don't accidentally hit the floating spike balls that are located here. You can use the wave burner if you have any left in order to push a couple of them out of the way so that you can grab some objects. After a few penguins and a Sniper Joe, you can enter the boss chamber for Burnerman. Now normally this battle was pretty tough with just the base buster, but when we get out the ice wall ability, we can stop him right in his tracks and use the ice walls that we make to push Burnerman right into the spikes. If you're standing next to Burnerman when you summon the ice wall, he'll instantly be stuck to it and you just easily push him into the spikes. Next up is another one of these chambers where we have this giant circular robot that has to break blocks down in order for you to eventually reach a door down in the corner. It'll take a while, but just keep moving back and forth and try to do your best to dodge this thing, as it's going to slowly break the blocks down. As you enter the next boss chamber, it's time for our rematch against Magic Man. Now, Magic Man's weakness is Tengu Man's ability, so grab that out. If you stand next to him and slice Magic Man with it, you kind of slice him in half for a second, doing a lot of extra damage. This battle can still be rather tricky because he can still do a lot of damage with his projectiles, as well as recover his health using his magic cards. Once he's taken care of though, thankfully we can replenish our health on a few health boosts in the next room, as well as if you don't get full health, you can keep fighting the worms that spawn, so that you can get your health back to full before entering the boss chamber for Groundman. Now Groundman's weakness is the remote mines that we get from Pirate Man, and there's a few ways you can use them here. If you end up exploding him before he ends up going underground, you can do good damage, but if you leave it on it when he jumps underground, it'll also explode, causing him to pop back up instantly. Groundman was pretty easy the first time we battled him, but with those remote mines, he's even easier. Once he's done, start working your way through the next chamber with a lot of holes in the ground, and there's so many enemies that it can slow down if you're not careful and don't destroy any of the enemies, so just be very careful while making your way through, and then you'll enter the boss chamber to do a rematch against Tengu Man, the final of the robot masters we have to refight. For Tengu Man, just stand up and use the giant drill ability. As he's moving back and forth in the air, if you place the drill in the right spot, he'll run right into it and instantly fall down. If you keep doing this correctly, he'll never get one of his moves off, and he'll destroy Tengu Man in only a couple of seconds. Once he's done though, it's time for the final boss battles of the game. The first battle against Dr. Wily starts off in his giant ship. Switch back off to your normal base buster that we have powered up, and fire shots at the cockpit of the ship where you can see Dr. Wily's face. He has a few different moves here, but thankfully we can destroy any of the missiles that he shoots out at us directly, or do a double jump over him. When he sends out the spinning wheel, just do a quick dash underneath of it, or walk underneath of it as it bounces, and when you get underneath of it, this will give you a good opportunity to keep jumping and delivering shots to him. With the powered up buster, we'll be able to take him down quickly, and now it's time for the final boss against Dr. Wily in his classic UFO spaceship. In order to actually hurt him, you once again have to hit him in the cockpit area where you see his face. Sometimes he'll teleport real low to the ground and you can just do a short jump, and if he's real high, you'll of course have to do a double jump. The beams that he sends out, he has two different ways of sending out the white beams. A circular motion, which can be pretty easy to dodge as long as you're on the far side of the room from him, as well as he'll put out sometimes only 4 of them, and he'll try to follow you. Thankfully, with bases dashing and double jumping, you should be able to dodge him pretty easily. The other big move, and the worst one that he can do to you, is instead of the 4 white circles, he sends out 4 bombs. These can be a little bit tricky to dodge, but you can destroy them with the base buster if you're lucky, or just try to do your best to outmaneuver them and get them to go off screen. Once you're able to get that final hit on Dr. Wily, you can sit back and enjoy the ending. Mega Man and Base's ending is pretty cool, and they do some really nice drawings that they have that showcase what's going on along with the text. They also scroll the credits at the same time, so once the ending is over, the credits are also done and you just get your thank you for playing Capcom screen. It also shows you how many CDs that you found during the run. And like I said before, the ending is the same even if you do end up collecting all the CDs. While Mega Man and Base for the Super Nintendo never made it to North America, it's still a really cool game and I actually like it a lot better than the other Super Nintendo release of Mega Man 7. And with that, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.